And we welcome you to this longest of classics, 294 kilometres. I'm Phil Liggett alongside Paul Sherwin as always. And the field now back together after a long breakaway by Francisco Garcia and Marco Di Renzo. They're actually in the lead for 237 kilometres, Paul, but frankly it's now anybody's race again.
Certainly is. There was a big crash just before the Capo Berta. This is the real important part of Milan-San Remo, the Capos. This is where the action always takes place, but now you can see for the first time really this afternoon, the Team Telekom have come to the front. They're thinking about getting another victory for their man Erik Zabel, and still in the group, Marco Pantani.
Well, I think everybody's a little surprised about that, but you know, it's true. Frankie Andreu often says it. It's an easy race to finish, but it's a hard race to win.
And talking about Frankie Andreu, in fact, he was involved in a crash just before the Capo Berta, and he got held up by the race there, and he's a long way behind with Frank Vandenbroek, and Tom Steels was also in that crash, a man looking for a victory there. But Pantani looking very comfortable in this group.
He certainly is, gathering in the miles. Well, the breakaway of 40 seconds up, and this group still holding a very fast tempo. The roads are narrow here, and in order to try and make it a little bit hard, the organisation these days have the riders swing away from the coast ever so briefly to go over the cappies that lie around here, and then it's back down. The last one, of course, the Poggio, the crucial test, that will come 3.3 kilometres from the finish, and that, by the way, was introduced into this race back in 1960.
One of the most recent additions is the Cipressa. That is the hardest climb. That's why these guys are really on the front hammering now, because they want to get there as soon as possible and put their men into an ideal position, because this is the Cipressa where the race normally splits apart. Mario Cipollini there, you can see in the red Saeco Cannondale, riding close to the front. He too wants to make sure that he gets over the Capo, because he feels today's his great chance to win Milan-San Remo.
Well, it's always great if an Italian can pull off the big one of Milan-San Remo. The eyes of the world watching the first World Cup Classic of the season. Remember the riders coming here from a rather disjointed Tirreno Adriatico with all of those riders kicked out of the race, and an excellent victory in Paris-Nice by Frank Vandenbroek. And all of those riders in this race today now as they race down towards the finish in San Remo.
191, Mario Cipollini. Alongside him, 177, another man with a chance of victory, Nicola Minali, if this group can stay clear till we get down to the finish line.
Well, big Chippo, 214 there, looks like Uchikov. And number one is the man that won it last year, Erik Zabel, who had a great season too. He finished out with the highest number of wins, depending on which list you look at. Either way, he always wins hands down. He had a great 1997 season.
Rolf Riemann there for Casino, a team that really has had an excellent season so far. Now this is the town, the turning that they're looking for. They're turning now off the road just outside Imperia and onto the foot of the Cipressa. This is the important part. This is when you have to be at the front. And look at that already. The Team Telekom riders pulling off the front. They've done their job. They've got Erik Zabel to the front. And the man who's sat up there is Giovanni Lombardi. So he's obviously put in a lot of pressure to make sure the rest of the team reach the foot of this climb in an ideal situation.
A little bit of a surprise that, because Lombardi really is former Olympic track champion, by the way. He's a man that normally leads out Zabel for the finishes, and yet he's sold out rather early on the road today.
Cofidis rider just on the far side, Maurizio Fondriest. You can see the advantage of this group is 1 minute and 10 seconds over the rest of the main field, and the reason that split really was because of that crash just before the Capo Berta. But these riders who are at the front, there's Claudio Chiappucci moving forward. A small team for him this year, but still a big heart, and he still wants to get clear.
Well, the Ross Murray team for Claudio Chiappucci is anxious to get them on television, but it's good to see him still in the thick of it. 35 years old now, and he shot to fame that year in the Tour de France when Greg LeMond finally ran out the winner, and since then, of course, he has actually come of age. But right now, after a disastrous year last year, Chiappucci trying to go out on a high note.
Reaction now coming from the Asics-CGA team. That coming through there is Paolo Bettini. He's obviously thinking of Michele Bartoli, wearing number 11 for that team. They don't want Claudio Chiappucci to get clear, and in fact they've picked up the pace quite well. Team Telekom haven't panicked at all. They've left 2 men at the front there setting the tempo. They don't want to accelerate too much in a front group of 15 to 20 men.
I'll tell you what, Paul, this is hurting quite a few riders. Cipollini is beginning to slip back through the bunch. I saw that. Chiappucci's got nobody coming up to him here, and he's clearly suffering now. I'm not too sure he's going anywhere at the moment, as the reaction coming from the Asics team. Bartoli, obviously a very good sprinter.
Bartoli, the winner of the World Cup last year, looking for a win this year as well. And you can see the reaction now coming for Casino. That looks like Bo Hamburger going across there, and that was a great move. In fact, Bettini's got across to Claudio Chiappucci, so the race is splitting up, but they haven't reached the hardest part of the Cipressa yet. Now, Hamburger's come across there, Nicolas Jalabert as well, and a rider from Saeco has got across there, obviously realising that Mario Cipollini is no longer in the hunt.
Looking down the line there's no sign of Cipollini at all at the moment. But I think that the whole group is coming back around the coattails now, and it was all started, in fact, by little Claudio Chiappucci. But the field is slowly but surely coming back together again. The tempo has gone from the group now, and our motorbike is getting a little bit tricky.
This is Paolo Salvadelli on the front for Saeco, but it's all back together. Everybody very nervous at this stage of the game. They don't want to let a group of 4 or 5 riders get clear, but normally as you get closer to the summit of the Cipressa, that's when they put the hammer down, and normally you would see a group of 15 or 30 riders going clear, because the descent off this climb here is very dangerous indeed and quite technical.
Well, looking down, it was a big group, but we're looking still about 60-65 riders in this front group here as they start to come up towards the summit of the Cipressa. It is still Bettini who's setting the pace now for the Asics team.
Bobby Julich moving up into second place. I wouldn't expect to see him at the front in one of these classics. Obviously thinking of trying to help out his teammate Maurizio Fondries, who seems to have found some kind of form for the classics here, and Salvadelli there dropping into third place.
Well, it'd be nice to get a big win for Cofidis, not least for Bobby Julich. If he could pull off the big win in Milan-San Remo, that really would kick him into the new season on a high note. The field, to me, seems to be getting bigger. I'm not too sure whether the riders are still coming back on the rear end of it from the crash that happened, which delayed the bunch. Fortunately, nobody reported injured, all up and running okay. Remember that once over the top of the Cipressa, that puts us 24 kilometres from the finish, and then we've just got the short, sharp climb of the Poggio to come near the end.
That's the most important climb. That's where the attacks always take place. Number 61 there, you can see, is Alberto Elli from the Casino team. They've had an excellent season so far, winning the Tour of the Mediterranean and being omnipresent, really, since the start of the season. Now riders starting to pick up the pace, trying to get clear, trying to cause a split at the front of this group. Now, this is the hardest part of the Cipressa. Going around these corners, you're leaving yourself open to incessant accelerations, and certainly the attack must come quite soon.
Field at the back just hanging on. Some are hanging on, some are feeling a bit frisky, but it looks to me as though that big bunch might even be starting to thin out a little bit now as they climb up high above the sea. It really is the most scenic course, this. The riders say it's probably the most beautiful route for a classic. It's virtually a linear classic that just races straight down from Milan to San Remo. Looks like Salvadelli here setting the pace, Julich just behind him, and we got Michael Bogart, I think it is, there from the Rabobank team, champion of Holland, and there is Cipollini, and I don't think we're at the front right now if our camera can show us, but I think Cipollini is slipping away from the tail of the group, and he is, and so it looks as though the old legs have sold out.
Well, he thought today was going to be his day for Milan-San Remo, but certainly the accelerations on this climb have really put paid to Mario Cipollini's chances this afternoon. The organisers put this climb in a few years ago to make it more difficult for the sprinters, and that certainly has done that for Mario Cipollini this afternoon.
In 1982, in fact, the first put the Cipressa into the route of Milan-San Remo, and now it looks as though it's changing. Peter Vadersijn from Lotto is setting the pace, and it looks as though he's picked up Rodolfo Massi with him from the Casino team.
Still the Asics-CGA team at the front keeping the pressure on, and it's still the same man, Bettini, keeping the pressure high. In fact, it is in fact Andrea Noe. These guys have decided this afternoon Michele Bartoli is the #1 favourite, and I would think his tactic would be to try and get to the bottom of the Poggio, and then he will be looking to try and launch an attack from there. You can see he's wearing there the white jersey in 5th position. That is the World Cup jersey from last year. As the defending champion, he has the right to wear it in the first event.
Oh, we might get a close-up of that now, Paul. Our motorbike's down in amongst it here. But there it is, about 3 down the line from us now, and that is the defending World Cup champion, Michele Bartoli. But it does look as though there are so many teams fancy their chances up here today. But this man is in a little bit of trouble now. Big Mario Cipollini falling back pretty quickly as the pace continues to speed towards the finish.
Well, the speed Mario Cipollini's going at the moment, he will not catch back to the front group on this descent because it is so quick, the descent off the Cipressa, and then you've got a short flat section before you then reach the Poggio. But still the pressure on at the front from Rodolfo Massi, and right on his wheel there's another rider coming across there.
One of the Mercatoni Uno riders, so Pantani we wouldn't expect to see in the action towards the end, but he is in this league group. He sent a teammate up there to control affairs perhaps. And 3 of them now, and there's still a 4th one trying to get across. There's Massi on the front.
Well, another move coming here. This is going to be Riccardo Forconi from the Mercatoni Uno team. He's trying to put the pressure on. Another man you wouldn't expect to see in that group behind is one of the Festina riders, Richard Viron. He too is not a man for the one-day classics. His goals are a lot further down the road, the Tour de France, but for him, he's riding very well in this group this afternoon.
Rider number 51, just tacked onto the back here, is Stefano Colliget. And he's come up with 1 or 2 good wins in his career and always surprises. Rides for the Cantina Tolo Alexia team this year. And it looks as though they've now tagged onto the back, so Massi has been picked up. He was the pacemaker for Casino at the front, and immediately an attack by Forconi, Mercatoni Uno, as they come up, has gone clear. But the group is right there, Paul, and they're climbing at such a fast tempo.
Unbelievable. You can see the gaps are starting to appear in the group. They're coming into the town at the top of the Cipressa now, and this really is the hardest part. Very shortly, I would feel certain that there's going to be a split. Somebody will be hanging on for grim death to the wheel in front of them. They won't be able to do it any longer, and they'll sit up, and we'll see a few riders going clear.
Well, it looks a little bit like Rolf Jarman has got himself up into the top 3 now. He's just come up behind Forconi here. He's the Casino rider, there he is. And also Noe is still here, and still Stefano Colliget.
And Bobby Julie riding up there in 5th place. There's still a lot of Saeco Cannondale riders to the front, obviously given freedom now because Mario Cipollini is reportedly 40 seconds behind this leading group of riders, so he's not going to win Milan-San Remo this afternoon, but the speed over the Cipressa is quite phenomenal.
Well, they're turning huge gears right now to keep together. So if you're on the back of this string, it's going to take a little bit of a while to get to the front. 6.5 hours they've been riding. Remember, we're still at the start of the season here in March, and the legs surely now are taking a heavy lot of weight over the distance. 294 kilometres, the longest classic of the year. And the field, because of the crash, has been sliced down to about a quarter of the starters.
Andrea Noe on the front, keeping the pressure on these guys, just thinking about keeping it high, making sure that they can put their man Michele Bartoli into an ideal position. That looks like Hamburger going over the front there. He's decided it's not quite fast enough for him, and that's obviously a planned move, Phil. 2 riders from Casino going over the top, and in fact there's a rider there from Festina which looks very much to me like Laurent Dufaux.
Well, that's a good attack by, in fact, Rolf Jarman saw his team captain coming up there, Bo Hamburger. They've come together on the same Casino team this year. Hamburger rode last year on TVM, and he wanted a little bit more freedom. Well, he may have it here because he's now put in an attack. But again, everybody is alert. They're expecting the attacks to come, and they're very, very vigilant just now.
Very nervous time in Milan-San Remo. Moving up into 5th place there, you can see the Polti rider. That will be Fabrizio Guidi. He'll be looking for a good sprint victory if he can stay along well with this group here. Now they're all back together. The 2 riders from Casino leading it down the descent. That was an excellent move by them to try and get 2 riders from the same team clear. But you can see 1 or 2 riders taking advantage of this descent to try and make contact with the group, but a lot of riders have been shed on the climb of the Cipressa.
Well, now it's a very twisty descent away from the mountain back down to the coast road. Then we'll pedal down the coast road, and before you know it, we'll turn right over the Capo Verde and onto the Poggio and on over the top. It's only 162 metres high, the Poggio, but it's very, very steep. It is in fact steeper than the Cipressa, and then the descent down to the finish. Little group trying to get away, but so far nobody is making any impression on this field today.
After 7 hours in the saddle, the Poggio is a very difficult climb, and you can see very often the win of Milan-San Remo is made on the descent. It might not be the descent of this climb, but very often the break can go on the descent of the Poggio, which is where Eddy Merckx laid the foundations of his 7 victories in this great race.
And those who will remember the victory by Sean Kelly when he flew down and he picked up Moreno Argentin in the home straight and beat him in the sprint. That was certainly worth watching that day. Now that's still to come as they approach the Poggio, but first they've got to get off the Cipressa, and they're freewheeling down towards the road now, and nobody making any effort. Neither can they here. These little descents remind me of the area around the back of Nice in the Alpes Maritimes. They're very narrow and very twisty.
Very difficult corners too, quite technical. You have to make sure you get it just right, because if you get it wrong, you hit one of the walls at the side here, and the 2 Casino riders still at the front keeping a lot of pressure on. They've obviously got some preconceived plan this afternoon to try and make sure they can split the field up on the descents. Still, Bo Hamburger really is pushing it along on this descent here. They haven't got down to the main road yet. And you know what did happen before the start of the Cipressa? A lot of riders from Team Telekom were at the front trying to get their man Erik Zabel in an ideal position for that climb. And as soon as they hit the climb, all of the pink jerseys of Telekom disappeared. There's no one to be seen apart from Erik Zabel, who's still in this group somewhere. And amazingly enough, Richard Biron, Laurent Dufaux as well was one of the Festina riders riding very closely to the front.
So no heroics on the way down, Paul. They're just keeping the race together now. They've thinned out, I think, all they're going to thin out until we get to the Poggio. A chance for some of the riders at the back to move up as we get down towards the coast road, but this is a very difficult race to cover as well, by the way, for our moto cameraman, because of course they can't get the motorbikes in amongst the riders. That's why many of our shots are coming from the helicopter just over the race.
Well, back down onto the flat coast road again now, just the short link between the Cipressa, the Capo Verde and of course the Poggio. You can see in fact the Cipressa there has had a serious effect as the attacks are still starting to come clear, and in fact Alberto Elli now has decided to leap off the front. So this is what they were trying to set up. There's Laurent Dufaux. Amazing to see this man who we would expect to see during the stage races later in the year, mixing it with the best in a one-day classic like Milan-San Remo.
Well, he's been joined by Stéphane Herlot of La Française des Jeux, and the rider just over on the Polti rider there, Fabrizio Guidi. Now he would be very happy if it came down to a sprint right now. He's got himself in a very good position, but the whole field regrouping. There are a lot of Festina riders still in this group here, and watch out now because the World Cup leader himself is having a dig, and in fact Erik Zabel knows the man to mark because he's right on his back wheel.
Number 1 following number 11, the winner of the World Cup last year, and obviously Erik Zabel being very attentive now. He wants to make sure he can stay on the right wheels to try and get himself over the Poggio. I'm not quite sure why Bartoli's putting this effort here in on the flat part of the course, maybe trying to surprise people, but it is so fast here, it's very difficult for a man to get away alone.
Well, it's good to see that the sprinters are actually paying attention. This is Rolf Jerman again, who's riding at the front, and now Zabel has taken his wheel as well. So Erik Zabel, the winner last year, and by the way, he's done nothing but talk about winning the Milan-San Remo for the second year. He's thought about it all winter. Now, can he do it? He's certainly got himself in the right position, and he's marshalling this race well.
He has. He's going to the front. Seems to me as if he's doing too much work for the moment. He doesn't have any teammates left in this group. They did all of the work before the Cipressa, and now he's going to have to chase all of the moves on his own.
Well, somebody from Mercatoni Uno has gone up on the outside there, and there is a rider clear, Paul.
Somebody's trying to get clear. It looked like a Festina jersey to me. Difficult to see from this angle. In fact, it is a Festina rider. It's Christophe Moreau going clear, and with him, Marco Velo. Now, there's a good name for a man to ride a bicycle.
It certainly is. Velo, the French word for bicycle, but it's an Italian who's riding the Bianchi right now. And now it looks as though they feel as though they may be getting a little gap going here now, and it looks as though 3 of them are now trying to get clear.
Everybody's trying to get a marge over the main field. Moreau, a very strong rider, feels that this is a good opportunity for him, but they've nailed it back straight away, and the attack's coming thick and fast. The thing is, Phil, because of that crash, there's no team dominant enough to control the main field.
Well, it's interesting to see too that Zabel has found the pace getting a little bit hot here, has dropped out of the action just for the moment at least, and the Polti rider going clear there is Rossiano Brasi, as he now tries to go clear as well.
Good move by Brasi. He's gone off the front now. He's hoping that there will be a bit of marking starting to come in the riders behind. You can see the reaction coming thick and fast there. Now another Festina rider trying to come across the gap, and it is very fast indeed. You can see the gaps appearing amongst these riders.
Well, we're down amongst the infamous greenhouses which abound in this area, and Brasi is the latest rider to attack, but you know, try as they might, very rarely do they escape the field here to win San Remo, yet there's no shortage of men willing to have a go.
In fact, this is Richard Virenque trying to come across here. Now, that's strange to see him so close to the front in a race like Milan-San Remo. Brasi now will have a man to help him try and hold off the main field. Now, this could be an interesting development because this man, Richard Virenque, has got pretty good form at the moment. He tried to win the opening race of the year, although he couldn't do it, but he has come to this year in great condition. And now the two riders have a lead of about 12 seconds over the main field.
So Richard Virenque, 4 times the winner of the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France, has got himself up to the leader on the road, and the gap is certainly there, so this is an interesting move indeed. Now is still the Poggio to come as he takes to the front, and the main field are going to have to think. Very often, Paul, he's taken full advantage of the constant attacking, and they may just have had that slight moment of respite.
Well, that seems to be what's happened there. They've flushed across the road there. Christophe Moreau moving up into second place behind the reaction from the Casino boys. But as I said, there's no team strong enough to completely organise a chase. If there are 4 or 5 riders from Team Telekom, they could go to the front and chase properly. What's happening now is 1s and 2s are trying to get across, and that will give the advantage to the 2 leaders at the front.
So constantly riders just sprinting off the pack, and no coordination in the peloton, just for the moment at least. But we've got 2 riders now out in front, Brasi and Richard Virenque, and they're out of sight, but I'm not so sure they're out of mind just yet. Very shortly now we will be heading down the valley before the right flick up towards the finishing hill.
Well, Virenque didn't look very happy there. He was looking across, and it looked as if he was saying something to Brasi, trying to urge him to press on the pedals just a little bit harder. Now Virenque coming into second place, but the attack's coming very rapidly from behind. Everybody wants to get across, and they feel that it's a dangerous moment in the race. Trying to pick the pace up there, Luca Gelfi, a man who himself has finished 3rd in Milan-San Remo on a previous occasion.
Well, let's have a look from the helicopter. It always looks a long way when you're looking out of the helicopter. Well, it's a fair distance, Paul. It's got to be 15-20 seconds, I would think.
Yeah, there's a problem now, though, because you can see there's a radio communication between Brasi and his team manager. I think he's been told not to work, and Richard Virenque not happy at all, and serious discussions going on here.
Well, Brasi is not going to carry Virenque to the line, but then, you know, there's no real finisher for Polti in the main field. Expect perhaps Martinello, who's a great sprinter, but he's not going to work, is he?
Well, he's worried, I think, about the fact that Richard Virenque is an excellent climber. If the two of them get to the bottom of the Poggio with 15 or 20 seconds advantage, he won't be able to match the accelerations of Virenque on the climber. You can see there, he keeps touching his side. That, in fact, must be the push-to-talk button on his two-way communications back to the team manager, and he's obviously been given the word, don't work with the Frenchman.
Well, I'll tell you what, Virenque is not going to be happy with that, and he's moved over here. He wants him to come through. It's now down to 14 seconds. And I don't know what language they're actually conversing in, but certainly Richard Virenque wants him to work, and I think Brasi has either been told or cannot get an answer from his team manager. I'm not a person who agrees with these radio microphones. I think they spoil cycle racing, but nonetheless, he's waiting now for a decision to be made in the cars behind.
The decision's obviously been made that he won't work with Richard Virenque, but they do have a man in there with a very good sprint. In fact, one rider from the Polti team who has a chance of the win, if it does all come back together, is Fabrizio Guidi. But obviously the word has gone through. No help at all now coming from Brasi to Richard Virenque, and certainly Virenque will feel very frustrated to have this Italian sitting on his wheel.
Well, 4 seconds, they've edged it out a little bit, and it's all Virenque now doing the work. The main field are massing for the final assault of the Poggio. There's still plenty of riders at the front keeping the pace high. The Lotto boys are getting themselves interested once more.
Well, they're obviously pushing up to the front now to try and stir it up a little bit, because obviously Andre Chamil is in this group. I haven't caught sight of him, but that can be the only reason why the Lotto boys have gone to the front. And Chamil this year riding Milan-San Remo for the first time as a Belgian. This man's had more nationalities than he's had bank accounts.
I think this is his 3rd one, isn't it? Look, he's just saying to the cameraman, in fact, that nobody will help. It's a waste of time. And he's going to keep it going, but is there any point? Because he knows now he's going to get swept up. He's a bit of a colourful rider, is Richard Virenque. I think he wants the bike to use the accelerator on it.
He certainly likes to play to the cameras and the television, not happy by the fact that this man in second position is not collaborating to the success of the breakaway. He obviously feels that second place at least is better than finishing in the main group, so why won't the Italian work with him? Well, the reason is because he's got a couple of teammates in the group behind, and still they're not closing down. In a couple of kilometres time, Phil, they'll be turning right onto the Poggio. Now, if they can reach there with 10 or 15 seconds, then that gives Virenque a very good chance at a crack at the victory.
Well, it's going to be touch and go, I think, Richard Virenque. He knows they're closing in. It's almost as if he seems to me to be resigned to wait for this main field, judging by the look on his face. This bunch looks to be getting smaller, despite the fact that we haven't gone over a hill since the Cipressa, but there's been so much pressure applied at the front of this race that it does still seem to be thinning out. There's the gap. It's still a healthy one.
Still hovering around the 18-second mark, no help at all coming from Brassi sitting there. Virenque still insisting on keeping the pressure on, trying to get to the bottom of the Poggio. These riders all know the final of Milan-San Remo, because when they come down here after Paris-Nice, they always spend an afternoon to come and ride over the final 60 or 80 kilometres of Milan-San Remo to refresh the memory, so they know just exactly how far it is between the Cipressa and the foot of the Poggio. And that's all Virenque can do now, try and keep going. 10 kilometres to go to the finish, and about 3 to the bottom of the Poggio.
Well, we're watching an attack now coming from the Lotto riders, and this is Farazine again. As the riders try to take much closer order, number 77 there is Bobby Julich, and Julich is having a great Milan-San Remo.
There you can see the main field in that group of about 35 riders now. Bobby Julich will be thinking about the performance of his own teammate Maurizio Fondriest. He's already won Milan-San Remo before, and he'd certainly like to give Cofidis a great victory. And still the gap not coming down dramatically, Phil, 12 seconds.
The Lotto boys then working very hard. That was Andre Schmil comes through, so he's right on the far wheel there. It looks like Ballerini is up here as well for Mapei. There's a little view from the seaside of the race, and still these two are staying away, even though it's a one-man show at the front.
A host of good sprinters in there. Just caught sight of Emmanuel Magnan. They're at the bottom of the Poggio now, and still Brassi sitting in second position, but the gap now, I would say, inside of 10 seconds, and somebody's trying to steal a marge over the bottom of the left and the right-hand turn, and I think it looks like one of the Casino riders.
It's a Casino rider, all right. We would have expected Bo Hamburger to make his move here. But this is little hill is going to hurt them now as they start the climb. The Lotto boys have been relegated to the back. I don't think Schmil is at the back. I think he's still staying at the front.
These two guys have done their job, but look at that, it's still hovering at 15 seconds. So that's remarkable. Now, Richard Virenque has done all of the work along the flat, and I would expect Rodolfo Massi to try and attack him over the top here.
Well, I'll tell you, if Massi only had given some help to this breakaway, they might well have got a gap that the others would never have seen again. As it is, they're going to hover here like a carrot in front of a donkey. And Brassi hasn't gone through at all. He's obeying his team captain. His sprinter back in the main field is probably Martinello. I'm presuming he's in that group. Otherwise, why isn't Brassi starting to work at all?
Well, Virenque on the front here, still riding, and there is an attack behind, and it is one of the Casino riders, and I would think that is Alberto Elli. He's been omnipresent since the start of the Capos. He's been looking for the move to go clear. In fact, it looks again as if it's Bo Hamburger. Dufo is going across now, so this is a great finish to Milan-San Remo. Men we don't normally see at the front of a race like this.
Well, you've got to make it count and make it count good here. You've got to strike hard and make it work. And now still a little bit further up the climb now. Richard Virenque is on the sort of terrain he loves most. But of course he's come here now after a few kilometres of flat-out effort, and knowing he's hooked up to a gadfly who's not going to do anything at all to assist him.
Well, it's amazing to see that Brassi's been sitting there for the last 5 or 6 kilometres, and he still hasn't tried a counter-attack. I would have expected him to try a move, at least at this stage of the game, just to see just how strong Richard Virenque is. Virenque now moving to the front of his saddle, obviously starting to hurt. After 290 kilometres in the saddle, it really is difficult then to change your effort. Here's the main field behind, a big splinter group coming off the front. There's a yellow jersey there, that's obviously Laurent Jalabert from France. He has nailed it back. Obviously you can see the rivalry between the French riders. Jalabert didn't want Virenque to win this afternoon.
Well, it looks like they're not going to now because they've been caught, and the group has rejoined them here, led by Saeco and La Française des Jeux. The rider there picking them up is Salvadelli. He's had a good race today, Salvadelli.
Emmanuel Magnin of France in the white jersey from the Française de Jeu, also moving forward, a very good sprinter there. He too has got a great chance if it comes down to the big sprint. There's André Schmil in 4th position.
He's a man for the classics, isn't he? Single day classics, and a real chance here now of a big victory, winner of Paris-Roubaix.
Big long line now. They've pulled back Richard Virenque. Everybody's back in the fold. A lot of work being done by Salvadelli. He hasn't got anybody to work for really, because Mario Cipollini is a long way behind. He's going around this corner. These corners on the Cipressa are taken at such speed. In fact, Salvadelli nearly went into somebody's backyard there.
Well, the motorbike's a little bit at fault. They're hovering just a bit too close now because they can't get round those corners as fast as the riders. They hairpin their way up to the summit. Somebody's bottle went winging off into the crowd there. Salvadelli keeps the pace going nicely. And the La Française des Jeux rider is Emmanuel Magnin. He's riding in 2nd place. There's still a big group if he comes round. Here's that situation again here. Salvadelli comes round. He loses his line, I think, because of the motorbike. And yes, you're right, Paul. He very nearly did go in for a cup of tea.
And in fact, second man round the corner there was Richard Virenque, and he had a pretty close call with that wall as well. But Salvadelli now still in 1st position, Magnin in 2nd, André Schmil in 3rd, and moving up into 4th position. That looks very much like one of the riders from Ballan.
The Ballan rider, we'll just get his number there. In fact, it's Gabriel Colombio, former winner of this event, and he's got himself right up there now. In fact, he's the last Italian to win it, I think. Then came Zabel, and Zabel in here too. He was very prominent earlier, and now I haven't seen him for a while, and really around now he should be starting to push his nose up to the front, I would have thought.
Well, the strongest team represented in this group here is obviously Casino. You can see 3 riders from Casino there. Bo Hamburger, Alberto Elli are wearing number 65, Rolf Jährmann. So these guys have got a good chance to try and do something. This is Jalabert now going.
Well, this is a hard attack. Now, that is a serious kick by, and he said Nicolas Jalabert, Laurent Jalabert from the Once team. He's got Colombo trying to hook up to his wheel here. And now there's one of the Casino riders trying to get across. We expected that. They had 3 of them up there. It's either Elli or Hamburger, I think. And now it looks like the style of Hamburger. He's got up into 3rd place, but all over. They're right on him.
They certainly are. Everyone was expecting the attack to come from Laurent Jalabert. There's one point on the course where the attack nearly always goes. It's about 1.5 kilometres from the summit. That's where Maurizio Fondries launched his successful attack a couple of years ago, and that's when a man with a big, strong engine can launch a good attack. And this is when I think Alberto Ellis decided to go over the top.
So Casino have all the power you can have asked for here, with Alberto Elli now on the attack. They've got Rolf Jährmann and Bo Hamburger as well. Rodolfo Massi is in there too. So Casino have 4 men they can shoot with here. So now they're trying with Elli, and he's got a gap.
Well, he's gone just at the right time, and you can see nobody wants to chase now. This looks like Zanini coming through here for Mapei. He's got a teammate in there, Ballerini, in 2nd position, André Schmil. Now Zanini is forcing the pace, but you know, they've just been hit at the right time by Alberto Elli. All he has to do is get over the summit with about 10 seconds advantage. The sign there indicating 5 kilometres left to go. And this man, one of the oldest riders in the race, he'll be looking at 34 years of age this year, and very shortly he'll get the left-hand turn at the top, which will take him then down into the town of San Remo.
Well, a sharp left-hand turn follows, and he's made that safely. The riders have regrouped behind him now, so Elli is one against the rest. 288 kilometres are on the way down the Poggio. It's a very tortuous descent. You've got to be careful. There's high walls on both sides, but if you can take risks and get away, then you'll win the biggest classic of them all at the start of the season.
Well, you can see there's a split in the group there as well now. Elli is completely committed now. He can only do one thing, that's go down this mountain as fast as possible, take all kinds of risks, not touch the brakes when he can do, keep his pace very high. He'll know this descent. All of these riders know the descent of the Poggio. They've gone down it in training on several occasions. This man has probably raced down it 7 or 8 times, so he'll know just exactly what he has to do. He'll take every risk in the book possible to try and make sure he doesn't lose any of that advantage.
Well, it's a good move by Alberto Elli. I think that was the corner where a few years back now Alain Bondu fell off when he had a real chance of winning, and he overcooked the corner and lost his chance, and it went to another Frenchman.
That was Marc Gomez, and that was a real sad occasion for Alain Bondu, because if the 2 riders had come into the Via Roma together, there would have been no dispute at all. Bondu was a very good track sprinter. In fact, he's now the manager of Bobby Julich with the Cofidis team.
Well, Cofidis have taken a back seat in these last couple of kilometres now. The Casino boys have done well to get a man away. It was clearly their pan. They tried with Hamburger, they tried with German. It seems to have happened with Elli now. As he starts the descent down, little look over his shoulder there to see what the action is like behind him. He really isn't getting away at the moment. He's going to have to take one or two risks, I think.
But this is the success that Casino have had in all the races they've ridden so far this year. The force of numbers. They've always had somebody to take over once they've launched a man into the attack. Another corner here. You can see just how tricky the descent is off the Poggio. He hasn't got more than 5 or 6 seconds advantage, but he'll keep the pressure high because he knows as soon as he gets caught, if he gets caught, that the next attack will come from Bo Hamburger or it'll come from Rolf Jährmann.
Another hairpin right for Elli. The field can see him virtually all the way down, but I don't think they need look at him because they're going to need all the concentration for these corners. But they are pulling him back, you know. He's only got a lead now of about 40 metres. There he goes, scuttling around the corner. And somebody is driving the train down here with great efficiency.
Looks like one of the riders from the Française de Jeu. He's come to the front now. He's decided that he has to close it down because of Emmanuel Magna, the French man who's in the group there. He's a very good cyclocross rider, but also an excellent sprinter. If it can come back together, it would give France a chance for victory. But you see the man on the front here, Alberto Elli, he just has to keep going now. He can't sit up because he's put all of his effort into this one final attack.
I think it is Stefan Erlo who is leading the chase down the mountain here, and they're holding Magnum back for the sprint. And if that is the case, he's done a pretty good job here of bringing this race back together again. And in fact, it is Erlo as he comes round that corner. And look at the way he's come round that corner too. He's eating into the lead of Elli.
Well, the descent here really fast there. The yellow jersey on the shoulders of Laurent Jalabert, and you can see just what sort of risks these men are taking here. And this is why the splits are happening. Look at the gaps in the main field. The speed, very high indeed. In the straights, they'll be touching 85, 90 kilometres an hour, but they have to slow down to almost stop in these very difficult hairpin bends.
Well, I saw Zabel go through and tagged on the back too. I noticed Fred Moncassin of the GAN team, and he's a good sprint finisher. So if they do close this down, there are still some very good sprinters left in this league group.
But Elli still hasn't given up. He's still going. He's not going to resist. He's not going to lay down arms until he knows somebody is right on his back wheel. Very shortly, he'll be slipping down into the outskirts of the town of San Remo, and he's already off the slopes of the Poggio, and he's on the flat now. He's got about 3 kilometres to go, and this is going to be very hard because now the roads are straight. The whole of that group is right behind him, but he's got to keep going.
Well, he's totally flat out now, Alberto Elli. He's just going to have to grit his teeth and go for it because he runs off onto the flat roads now, and behind it looks to me as though they are beginning to regroup. They can sense blood here because they're absolutely flying as riders now scrabble for wheels here, and Zabel is back in all of a sudden. Erik Zabel, number 2 wheel in the line.
Well, number 1 wheel in the line is Gabriele Colombo, the man who himself has also won this race before, and he's realised he has to commit himself. And it looks on the last few corners there of the descent to the Poggio, Phil, as if there's a sprint off the front of the group. And I don't think Elli's very happy about being chased by an Italian.
Well, he's sat up, and now it's been left immediately to a counter-attack from Rolf Jährmann. It's the only thing they can do now. They've still got Hamburger in there as well, but Rolf has gone immediately on the capture, being chased by the Lotto rider, and this is Mario Ertz, I think. No, it's not. It's Schmill himself. Schmill himself has taken up the action and immediately jumped onto the breakaway.
Well, it's going to be a great sprint now. The only chance now that Casino have is to launch one more attack, and that would have to come from Bo Hamburger. There was the red kite indicating just 1 kilometre to go, and somebody's decided to go.
Well, it looks like a Polti rider who has gone. We expected it to come from Bo Hamburger, but I think it's a Polti rider who has gone. As they make a sharp left turn now, well, we've got 3, 6, 9, about 20 riders in this group at the moment, and they've all regrouped again.
Well, the Polti rider has been brought straight back into the fold. The man now committed to leading out this sprint is going to be Gabriele Colombo. They're into the Via Roma now. In second place there is Erik Zabel. Right on his wheel is Emmanuel Magna. Zabel, we haven't seen him for the last 10 or 15 kilometres. Ideal position. There's Moncassin as well.
And Moncassin, and then behind him is Mirko Celestino, too, from the Polti team. And so that's the order. Fred Moncassin is a danger here now, and a victory for France would be very sweet. But I can't understand why Gabriele Colombo has spent so much time on the front there when he's not a sprinter, because all he's done is close it down for the sprinters to enjoy their day. Laurent Dufaux starts the attack as they come up towards the line now. Erik Zabel has got himself into a very nice and handy position. Fred Moncassin has tried to get onto his wheel, and Andre Schmill is off to our left too, but Zabel has got his eyes on 2 out of 2 here as he comes up to the line. Moncassin is not going to get to Erik. Erik Zabel crosses the line in first place. It looked as though Mannion will have got second place on the line there, and Fred Moncousin might have got third in the sprint. There was the split as the second part of that lead group has come in just about 14 seconds behind. But Erik Zabel, Paul, has got his victory. He's now got a back-to-back victory in Milan-San Remo, and I have to say that there aren't many riders ever done that. Eddie Merckx, though I must remind Erik, has done it 3 times on his way to 7 victories in this great race.
An excellent sprint there. You see, once he got to the front, he's got the power to open up. It's as if he's got an overdrive there. Once he saw the line, nobody was going to beat him. Second place on the right-hand side goes to Magnan, and Fred Moncousin of France for the Gaerne team gets third.
Well, that is Zabel's 6th win of the new season already, and the season has hardly begun here, but it played so perfectly. He's worked very hard all day to keep himself in the right position. He's not been afraid to go to the front when it mattered, but once he saw the finish, there was nobody going to get involved in this sprint because Zabel is simply too quick. And so he's given Deutsche Telekom the first big win of the season, and it was a clear one at that. Mannion second, Moncousin third, and Zanini comes in, followed by Schmill.
Well, a great win there, and you can see he's quite emotional about that victory because for him, he's been dreaming about this all through the winter months. He said he wanted to take 2 Milan-San Remos and very happily sprinting all over his teammate there. It's a lot like Rolf Aldag. In fact, that's Giovanni Lombardi. So he must have, in fact, abandoned at the bottom of the Cipressa and gone straight on, missed out the Poggio, and he was there at the finish to celebrate with his teammate.
And there's the result then. Same time for all of them. Casagrande 6, Petercam given 7th place. So Milan-San Remo has opened the World Cup season. It's opened our season as well on WCP, and I hope that you enjoy the season as it unfolds. But for San Remo right now, we will say goodbye.